Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing to speak about Shovavim and the time of fixing, and the time of healing, and the time of rebuilding, and the time of returning. These are weeks of holiness, these are weeks of connection and light, weeks that we spend time contemplating the disconnection that we experience in our lives, the symptoms that emerge from a sense of disconnection. But ultimately, all of that is for the purpose of awakening the deep desire for true connection. Because it's very often from within the contemplation of the distance that we come to understand how desperately close we would like to be. In the secret of Meirachok Hashem Nirali, that when I contemplate the distance that I feel, when I contemplate the things that keep me at a distance, that perpetuate a sense of distance from God, and I dig into that, suddenly from there emerges the deepest desire to come close. And suddenly Hashem appears to us. Meirachok Hashem, when I feel distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when I begin to contemplate what it is that's making me feel distant, so then Hashem Nirali, HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears in my life. And these are the holy days of Shovavim, that only when a person is able to contemplate the things that have caused us to stray or to feel distant from God or to feel wayward, can we then, in the very same swoop of energy, ascend upwards by way of tshuva, yearning to come closer. Every chait, every transgression, every mistake or lack that a person encounters is there to highlight one thing and one thing alone, that our true desire is to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the heart, the soul, the mind of a Yid comes from a place of connection, it comes from a place of pleasure. It's rooted in the worlds of pleasure, the supernal realms of divine expression. And anything other than pleasure in this world is going to feel painful. And when we feel that pain, we seek pleasure out in other ways in the hopes of suturing the wound that we feel, ultimately coming up empty-handed, realizing that there's nothing in this world that's going to satisfy me. And from that place of dissatisfaction, which is the process of tshuva, and coming to a place of realizing that I have to return, we come running back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, uncovering the singular thing that our soul desires, which is the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A deep and abiding awareness of that I am with Hashem. I am with Hashem and Hashem is with me. I'm not with Hashem because of what I do. I'm not with Hashem because of what I feel. I'm not with Hashem because of what I think. I'm not with Hashem because of the type of self-nullification I'm able to practice. I'm with Hashem simply by dint of the essential bond that exists between the innermost point of my soul and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Dveikus etzem, a fundamental, irreducible bond and connective thread that connects me to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at every single point of my life, never not connected. This is the goal, to reach a place of dveikus etzem, that I'm always connected. And sometimes the only way to run into that illumination of always being connected is to taste for a moment a sense, a brief moment of disconnection, a brief momentary feeling of disconnection. And that's what Shovavim is about. And so I want to spend some time focusing on an incredible mimer from the Tzemach Tzedek, Schus Yogan Aleinu, in the Sefer Derech Mitzvosecha, where the Tzemach Tzedek goes through the mystical and Hasidic light that's inherent within each and every mitzvah, and the Tzemach Tzedek's conversation about the Isser, the prohibition, of a Baal Mum, of a Kohen who has a blemish, being Makav a Korban. Because in this mitzvah of Avodas Kohen Baal Mum, that Tzemach Tzedek reveals to us something about healing, something about tshuva, something about ourselves and our generation that seems as if it was written yesterday. But in truth, it came down from the mouth of Tzaddik Emes, of Menachem Mendel, a Heilige Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek describes the nature of a Baal Mum. What is it that causes a person to feel a deficiency, a blemish? And when I'm talking about Baal Mum, I'm applying it to kind of that psychological posture that we all have of feeling that we're blemished, feeling weak. Neshamos chalushos, weakened souls that have fallen down into places that previous generations didn't have to fall down into. Places in experience, places in speech, places in feeling, places in thought. Each person knows where they've fallen to. And when we fall into those places, we pick up a certain scent, we pick up a certain mark or a remainder that we carry with ourselves that reminds us of the low places that we've fallen. And as a result of having been souls that struggle, or souls that find themselves in different pockets of darkness in this world, so what emerges is a certain weakness in the soul, a chalisha sadas, a softening of our capacity to truly believe that we could connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a doubt that begins to grow within the heart of ourselves, questioning whether we're actually worthy of being with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Shamos Chalushos, weakened souls of our generations, are makusher to the Shevet of Dan, the Shevet Dan, which is shaykh to these problems, as we see in Mitzrayim, that the only person to have deviated the entire circle of trust and confidence and holiness that Bnei Yisrael were able to maintain in Mitzrayim was Shalamis Bas Divrei Lamata Dan. It came from the Mata of Dan. Because Shevet Dan were the ones who held on to the Chametz. They were the ones who held on to Avodah Zarah, even when Hashem was revealing himself. They were the ones who were never quite certain about where they stood. Dan means that I'm judging something. I'm judging myself. Am I here or there, here or there? Shevet Dan were kicked out of the Anan HaKavod. They were no longer protected. And they were attacked by Amalek. Hanechashalim acharecha, the weakened ones, the ones who have grown tired. Nechashalim, the Torah tells us, the Sfarim HaKadoshim tell us, is the words Nachash Mila. It attacks us in that place of the Pegam, where we begin to feel low about ourselves. And Shevet Dan is this generational expression of doubt about the self's capacity to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and operating with a certain sense of weakness, Chalisha Sadas. A weakness, an inability to face HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a feeling that we're too stuck, that we don't have the right, that we're not able to enter into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. But at the very same point, this Chalisha Sadas, this weakness that hovers over the generation, in the spiritual sense of not being able to stand strong in the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a result of the Pigamim, as a result of the stains that we carry with ourselves and the shame and the narratives of trauma and weakness and inability, etc., etc., it becomes very difficult for us to raise our heads upwards and connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what happens is a Chalisha Sadash settles on the person. And that's where Yeyush comes in, and that's where inactivity comes in, and that's where sadness comes in, God forbid. And that's where the feeling that even if I wanted to care, I wouldn't have what it takes to care. All of these difficult feelings. But the Torah HaKadosh also tells us that this quality of Shevet Dan, this doubtful weakness that expresses itself in the soul, questioning our capacity to be illuminated, to live with light, to live with faith, to live with all rightness, to live with the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our minds, a pure connectivity independent of all things, Dveikos Etzem. It's specifically from within this doubt, it's specifically from within this Shevet Dan, the language of Din, who struggle and who feel weak. It's specifically from that place that the emergence of redemption begins to rumble. When Yaakov Avinu wanted to give a bracha to Shevet Dan, the bracha was Liyeshuascha kivisi Hashem. I yearn, I hope towards your salvation, Rabbeinu Shalom. Rashi tells us that Yaakov Avinu saw Shimshon Hagibor, saw the secret of redemption, clarity, strength, azas de kedusha. And Yaakov Avinu, even though it wasn't the ultimate redemption, he knew that that was the place that redemption was going to come from. And in truth, it's Shevet Dan that's going to build the Mishkan in the future with Mashiach ben Yehuda, Mashiach ben David. And even though Dan was kicked out of the cloud as a result of their weakness and they were attacked by Amalek and they fell into deep forms of self-doubt, nevertheless, they also chose to actualize their potential in that low place. They began to see that other people were losing objects as well. They weren't the only ones who were lost. They began to see that even those who remain within the cloud, they also lose things. They might not lose themselves completely, but they certainly lose parts of themselves, and that also gets kicked out of the Anan. And Shevet Dan began to make themselves useful, to live a life of usefulness, which was that if we're out of the Anan anyway, if we've been kicked out and we're operating in this territory of weakness, we might as well collect the objects that have fallen out so that we can return them. And we're told that Shevet Dan were engaged in the mitzvah of Hashava Saveda, restoring lost objects to their owners, restoring lost hopes, restoring weakness back to a place of strength. Hushim Bendan is the one who, instead of being occupied by the arguments, understands one thing. If Esav is blocking Yaakov, then Esav's got to go. And he paves the path for Yaakov Avinu, Yisrael Saba, to come into Marasa Machpelah to bring about the final redemption. So this weakness of Shevet Dan, this confusion of Shevet Dan, this bleakness of Shevet Dan's outlook about the self and its role in Avodas Hashem in this world, is also ultimately going to be the point of strength from which it stands up. Me'oivai techakmeni, from my defeats, from my falls, from my struggles, is exactly where I'm going to learn about my strength. And this notion leads us to the Tzemach Tzedek's understanding of Avodas Kohen Bal Mum. Why can't a person with a mum, why can't a person who carries the blemish and this weakness within themselves, why can't they bring a korban? Zohar Kadosh says that these souls that carry themselves as Bali Mumim, these souls that feel the burden of this worldliness, these souls that feel wounded, that feel that they can't heal, it's rooted in the diminishment of the moon, says the Zohar Kadosh. The moon needed to diminish itself to enable for there to be a structure of fullness and emptiness and reality so that choice can take place. And just as the moon diminishes itself and allows itself to have a pagam, it allows itself to have a mum, it allows itself to be deficient, to descend down from a place of fullness and wholeness and to go into a place of concealment where it's hidden in darkness. And that pagia salavana, that blemish of the moon, influences particular neshamos and souls that come down into existence. And those souls are also nifgam. Those souls also experience this world through a lens of a blemish. They also feel this degradation, this descent away from wholeness into places of concealment. Just as the moon hides itself and conceals itself and ebbs and flows, so too there are neshamos who take upon themselves a partnership with the Shechina, with the moon, and they also accept upon themselves the willingness to ebb and flow and descend and learn how to grow, just like the moon has to. Now, the light of the moon, says that Tzemach Tzedek, is the Shechina, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence that rests within this world. Now, in truth, the Shechina HaKadosha is purified beyond all forms of purity. Mum ein bach, there's no deficiency there whatsoever. There's absolutely no deficiency, and in the future it's going to be revealed that the moon was not deficient, but rather it was willing to go down for the sake of coming up with even more strength. Eishes chayel atares baila, that the moon is going to ascend beyond the value of the sun, and it's going to enable the sun to extend itself even deeper. But what will be revealed is that the decision of the moon to diminish itself and enter into a cycle of deficiency and fullness, was part and parcel of the divine plan so as to enable a playing field of light and darkness, good and evil, fullness and emptiness. And this Shechina HaKadosh is in truth Malchus of the world of Atzilus. What that means is that in the world of Atzilus, mum ein bach, there's no deficiency at the core of the soul. There's no deficiency at the core of the Shechina. But in the worlds of separation, in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya, the territories of self that feel outside of the purview of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unity, in that place, there are rectifications that need to be made because there was a shattering of the vessels, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed there to be broken things that fall down into the world of concealment. And those broken things need to be fixed. That's the purpose of history, to mend those broken things, to rectify the broken vessels, to clarify the light that remains within the brokenness, and then to fulfill that broken light with an even greater form of rehabilitative light. The two stages of the rectification of those fallen vessels. First and foremost, identifying the good that rests within the evil, and then transforming it and revealing that there's no such thing as evil whatsoever. But this work of rectifying clarifications and fixing broken things and being metaken things that are deficient, that's only relatable in the worlds of separation. And the Shechina HaKadosha sees this. The Shechina HaKadosha understands that there's birurim, there's clarifications, there's pockets of light that are stuck down in the lower parts of existence, in the darkened territories of this worldliness and the experiences of this world internally and externally. And in order to rectify that, in order to bring out all of the light and to bring about the final redemption, which comes along when all of the sparks of Yiddish light are ascending from down below and being revealed to be part and parcel of the unity above, Malchus is Moiser Nafsha. Malchus says, I'm willing to go down from the world of Atzilus and descend down beyond the Mesach, beyond that separation and partition that separates divine unity and apparent separation, and to go down each and every night to descend down into the places of darkness. Like Rachel Imenu, who goes and hides underneath the bed, descends down, down, down into the territories of concealment, where it appears that it's wounded, where it appears that the Shekhinah HaKadosh is under attack, and that there's pagamim, and that there's difficulty, and that there's things that are not good in this world. But ultimately, we know that Malchus is descending down, not because it's actually experiencing the darkness, but because it's Moiser Nafsha to descend down, to be Meir on the Neshamos of Klal Yisrael who feel stuck. All of those sparks of our souls that feel stuck within all of the qualities of this worldliness, the Shekhinah HaKadosha comes down and it sits with us in our pain. It sits with us in our difficulty. It's yored into Gullus with us. Not because it's actually exiled, because it wants to sit with us there. And when we're in pain, in truth, what the Shekhinah is saying, I'm in pain. And when we're in pain, what we should intuit is, wow, the Shekhinah is whispering to me, it's pain. And together we can grow forth from within that place of pain and ascend upwards. But the light of the Shekhinah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends down a hashra'ah, the ability to attach ourselves to God by way of emunah, by way of chizuk, by way of bitachon, even in the worlds of separation, even in the worlds of Bri Yitzir and Asiyah. Now, in order to descend down into the worlds of Bri Yitzir and Asiyah, the Shekhinah has to begin to take on certain qualities of deficiency. It begins to seem that there's moments of connection and moments of distance, moments of strength and moments of weakness, moments of feeling good and moments of feeling bad. All of that is part of the narrative structure. All of that is the theatrics of the descent of Malchus into exile in order to elevate all of the sparks that are found there. And there's certain souls HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends down into the world. There's certain neshamos that are so empathic to the Shekhinah that just as the Shekhinah has to go down into stages of deficiency where it appears that there's a mum, where it appears that there's a blemish, where it appears that something is broken or missing or unfixable or sad, God forbid, or hopeless, God forbid, like Machanadan. So these souls are also going to experience life in the way that the Shekhinah experiences itself, which is the ebbing and the flowing and the emptiness and the fullness and that sense of a deficiency, that sense of a mum. That sense of a mum, that sense of being blemished and struggling from within the darkness to elevate the light back up. When a soul finds itself struggling, when a soul finds itself consistently feeling a tendency to those darkened corners of the mind where it's fighting against yeyush and sadness and despondency and hopelessness and perpetually strengthening itself to come into a place of joy and hope and rectification and affirmation, a soul who's consistently struggling with that back and forth, not knowing which way it's going to feel in the next moment, that is a sign that we are mishtatef with the Sar of the Shekhinah, who's also going down into that same position. The Shekhinah is also ebbing and flowing and open and closed and ascendant and descendant and rectified and broken and full and deficient. And so too the souls that attach themselves, the chayalim of the Shekhinah HaKadosha, are the ones who are also willing to descend down and be a neshama that's a balmum, to be a neshama that operates from a place of deficiency, of being wounded. Now, in spite of the fact that the neshama is never actually wounded, in spite of the fact that Malchus is never actually deficient, this is how it has to go. This is the grand narrative through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is fixing things, to go down into the darkness. Lahapech meriru lematiku, to transform the bitterness into light, to transform the darkness into light, to transform that which is painful into that which is pleasurable. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants this world to be run. That's the dir b'tachtonim. And these souls that accept upon themselves to be with the Shekhinah throughout all of this are going to be souls that are going to go through all sorts of changes and all sorts of difficulties and all sorts of struggle. And these souls are not allowed to enter into the Beis HaMikdash. They're not allowed to bring a korban. Why are they not allowed to bring a korban? Because they've chosen and taken upon themselves the reality of staying in the worlds of Bri Yitzir and Asiyah, of being the guardian of deficiency, of feeling that process of going down for the sake of coming up, of being stuck for the sake of becoming unstuck, of feeling farfallen for the sake of realizing that I can come closer and closer, of being kicked out of the clouds so that I can restore lost objects. And as long as the Shekhinah is going to be in this same theatrical position of descending down into concealment, so too these neshamos are going to be experiencing the ups and the downs and the ebbs and the flows of feeling that I can't bring a korban because I'm a balmum. Similar to the neshamos of Pesach Sheni, who ultimately, even though they're balei mumim, they come and say, Lama nigara, why should we lose out? Anachnu tameim lenefesh adam. Anachnu tameim, we're tameh, we're balei mumim, we're stuck. But why should we lose out? And even though, why should we lose out? Nevertheless, there's a certain guardedness that a certain neshama has to feel sometimes in the struggle, in the constant struggle. Not the actualized actions of struggle. That doesn't have to remain what happens in a person's life. We can always shift our symptoms. But the nature of struggle and the opening and the closing, this is a sign that it's a neshama that has chosen its path to be makasher to the Shekhinah. Language of the Tzemach Tzedek is as follows. These souls that descend down with the quality of Malchus and allow themselves to come down into a body in this world within the territories of concealment, in the worlds of separation, every place that they encounter, every level that they descend into this worldliness, they experience different types of pain, kama tsa'arin v'kama ke'evin, different types of struggles, different types of resistance, v'it baru, v'it pagimu, and they break and they shatter and they're blemished, all because they're going along with the Shekhinah, the moon that's also in its state of deficiency. And these are the souls that are willing to accept upon themselves for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be soivlei hayisurin, to experience this spiritual struggle, this attempt to climb out of the darkness instead of feeling that we operate strictly within the light. It's because in the innermost core of our desire and the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that Hashem wants our souls to be in this place so that we can engage and wage in the battle with the externalization and the outsideness of this world in order to bring out beautiful things from within that which is debased, in order to transform the darkness into light, to transform the broken deficiency of this world and reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in that. In the secret of revealing the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rests within the bodies of deficiency, within Pegamim, as much as he does above. This is the secret of Malchus, that it descends down into concealment, it descends down into this world with blemishes, with struggles. The neshama remains fundamentally holy. The body is the thing that receives the blemish. The body is the thing that lives with that struggle, that's ebbing and flowing and running and returning and not knowing which way it belongs. That's all the noise of the body as it descends down into this world. But the neshama of these neshamos, our neshamos, in spite of the fact that the body struggles and it goes down and it gets stuck, these neshamos are ultimately kedusha b'tachlis hakedusha. B'tachlis hakedusha. So there's a dual side to being a neshama that is willing to attach itself to the malchus and go down. We've chosen this before we're born, as the tzaddikim tell us, that we accept upon ourselves the condition of our souls. We have to go to the tzaddikim to check in what our condition is in, always to make sure that we're going in accordance to the path that we need to be going. But sometimes it takes effort for the soul to push, to persevere, And then after all of the perseverance, things begin to open up more, and then there's a need for more perseverance against the constriction. But these are the Yisurim of the Bnei Adam that find themselves in this place. But ultimately, says that Tzemach Tzedek, it's not for long. We're not always going to be down in this place of concealment. Because even though we feel that it's a battlefield and we have to fight tooth and nail to encounter truth, emunah, and light in our lives, nevertheless, in the future, what's going to be revealed is that we did this for you, Hashem. We were willing to come down into this place of concealment and merirus and the back and the forth and the avodah of tshuva and overcoming yeyush and fighting for simcha. We did it for you. We did it for you. Just like the Shekhinah did it for you, we did it for you, Ribono Shel Olam. And we lived our lives with that experience, but for you. It's not because we were actually far from you, Ribono Shel Olam, but the experience of distance from you was exactly where you wanted the light to come out from. And we were willing to do that for you. Because in the future, when Malchus ascends upwards again, and we're able to engage with all of the deficiencies in the world and be victorious in the milchama, and we swallow up all of the difficulties and we bring out all of the light, and we're moitzi all of the nitzoitzim and the wondrous sparks of light that are hidden in foreign places, and we elevate it back up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just as Malchus is going to ascend upwards again when Mashiach Tzidkenu comes, and it's going to be revealed to be the crowning jewel of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not only are these souls of ourselves not deficient, but we're the greatest souls imaginable because we were willing to go all the way down. And the light of the sun is going to be measured by the light of the moon, and the light of the moon is going to be equal to the light of the sun. And the feminine quality of these neshamos, our neshamos that fall down into stuckness and the problems, are going to ascend and be shown to be the worthiest of souls. And then says the Tzemach Tzedek, these souls of ours that were broken and engaged in the connection to the Shekhinah, that suffered with the Shekhinah, that experienced the battle pains, the particular forms of difficulty that we encountered that prevented us from bringing korbanos, the injuries that we received as a result of the milchama in this world, the pains and the struggles, spiritually, physically, all of that is going to be part and parcel of the particular unity that we're going to have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's going to be different than anybody else. The neshamos that went through the struggle, the neshamos that fought for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, when we come to realize that we were there for you, Hashem, to elevate your sparks from there, Him yityachtu ima be'eze chedva pratit yoter meklalos Yisrael shaloi savlu kol kach bepratius. These souls that have suffered are going to have a deeper form of unification with a particular form of joy that the rest of Klal Yisrael are not going to be able to experience. They won't be able to hold that. But Tzemach Tzedek gives a mashal for this. Tzemach Tzedek gives a mashal. He says there's a way of battle that in order to bring the enemy out of their hiding place, that there's going to have to be a soldier who makes it seem as if they're injured, makes it seem as if they're fallen so that the enemies are going to pounce. Because once the enemies see that the opposing side has fallen into weakness, so the other side begins to come out of its hiding place because they want to grab hold of sparks of holiness. They want to grab hold of Nishmas Yisrael. The Sitra Achra wants to cause us to be hopeless, wants to cause us to fall into sadness, God forbid. And when they see that we're buckling under the pressure and it appears that we've been wounded in battle, so then the enemy side comes out to fight. But in truth, that injury was planned from the get-go. Why? Because when we can't find where the enemy is and it's laying in hiding, sometimes there's a neshama that's willing to go out and pretend that it's injured so that the enemy side of Sitra Achra could come out and feast, and then we'll be able to clarify it and destroy it because we'll see it out in the open. This is the language of the Tzemach Tzedek, that there's a way of doing battle in a physical sense, that sometimes it's fundamental for one person to make it appear as if they've been hit a little bit in the hands of the enemy, until the enemy begins to chase after them. And it's a wondrous plan, it's a wondrous military strategy, and it's a profoundly deep wisdom. Why? Because this is all done in order to find and uncover the hiding place of the enemy, so that when they come out, we can attack them and we can destroy them properly to the degree that they no longer exist. And so too with these neshamos, that there's neshamos that appear to be stuck for the sake of the Shekhinah HaKadosha, so that when we begin to feel that yeyush, that's when we're able to kind of snuff it out entirely. This is the secret of Galus HaShekhinah. These neshamos in the future, our neshamos in the future, are going to experience a profoundly deep level of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we've been willing to go down into the struggle and to do the battle necessary to overcome the tendency to feel that we can't fix and to fix. Avada, there's a lot of neshamos that know how to fix things immediately, and that's a wonderful, beautiful thing, but the light that comes out from someone who feels that they can't fix and then learns to uncover the secret that they can be fixed and that they can fix it, and that they can fix everything through the tikkun klali, through the general rectification of their lives, the glory and the pleasure that comes up from that place is going to be the most wondrous form of glory. That's the secret of the Baal Tshuva, who stands in a place that the tzaddik themselves can't stand, because they came from a lower place and they ran deeper, deeper, deeper into the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the secret of our souls that appear to be injured in the battle of this world, appear to be burdened down by hopelessness and struggle, but at our core, we know, Hashem, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you. This is the condition of my soul. I'm going to do everything in my power to make it better. I'm going to serenity prayer lahavdil each and every circumstance. I'm going to understand what I can change and do what I can to change my circumstances. I'm going to do what I can to understand what I can't change and accept those circumstances. And from within the place of genuine self-acceptance and understanding who I am, I'm going to do my best, but I'm also no longer going to let myself be shameful and feel broken about my struggles. My struggles are a sign that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, me anshe hashchina, anshe hashchina, the neshamos that are makusher to the Shechina HaKadosh, the last birurim, the last clarifications, the clarifications of faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and faith in ourselves when we feel the opposite. This is the great light of our generation. This is the great light that the Baal Shem Tov came down to speak to. The Baal Shem Tov came along to our neshamos and saw the deficiencies and saw the blemishes and saw the crying out. And the Baal Shem Tov davened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he says, heal them, heal the Shechina, heal the Shechina, heal Nishmas Yisrael. And the first part of the healing is enabling us to understand that when we're in that process of healing and still in pain, that's not being outside the realm of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's uncovering more and more light for HaKadosh Baruch Hu when we do the work properly. There's a remarkable, remarkable teaching that I live with from Rabbi Nachman, Sichos Haran, Ois Reish Chaf Beis. The Rechev. This is the chariot that brings us to redemption. Rabbi Nosson says as follows: I heard in the name of someone, that Rabbi Nachman spent a lot of time talking to one individual who was struggling with bilbulei emunah. Bilbulei emunah, not knowing how to settle emunah in my mind, not having yishav hadas, not knowing the goodness that I can stand upon, not trusting fully. And Rabbi Nachman gave him a lot of chizuk. What was the chizuk that Rabbi Nachman gave to this individual who was experiencing bilbulei emunah, to these neshamos that are in battle and wounded in battle? Amar lo she'isa, Rabbi Nachman said that it's written that the entirety of the creation of the world, all of existence, was only so that there can be this experience of struggling with emunah. That it's written that the entire creation of the world was because HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked out into the future and he saw that towards the end of days, there are going to be individuals who experience a tremendous amount of suffering with regards to figuring out where they stand with faith. Shehiyu anashim shehiyu lahem yisurim be'inyan ha'emunah ha'kadosha. That we're going to struggle with faith in ourselves, with faith in the world, with faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with faith in the chizuk, with faith that we can do what we need to do, with faith that we could connect ourselves to the deepest founts of wisdom. And the reason for this lack of faith and the suffering for the sake of trying to clarify our faith is because of the bilbulim and the denials that ascend into our minds as a result of being in this low place. But when these souls have the ability of strengthening themselves against all of these machshavos and strengthening themselves in emunah and grabbing hold of faith, this is the entire purpose for the creation of the world. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. He wants us to overcome that tendency towards denial and the Yisurin bilbulei emunah, and to overcome that and to clarify ourselves and to come closer to faith. That is the purpose of the creation of the world. And these words that Rabbi Nachman said to this person gave a tremendous, tremendous amount of strength. And any time these thoughts would enter into that person's mind, he would strengthen himself with the words that Rabbi Nachman said. Rabbi Nachman also said multiple times, says Rabbi Nassim, that the entire purpose of the creation of the world is that we should merit emunah, that all actions, all work in this world is about emunah. So we see that the struggle is not the problem. It's the way in which we relate to the struggle. We can't be weakened by the fact that we feel weak sometimes. We can't be weakened by the fact that we feel the need to be metchazik ourselves over and over and over. Even if I have to be mechazik myself 1,000 times a day, 1,000,000 times a day, I cannot be miyayish on the fact that I can do it. The person has to be able to stand strong and realize that Hashem, if I'm experiencing my relationship to you in this process of the up and the down and the fighting and the overcoming and all of those things, I'm here for you, Ribbon Shlaylam. I'm doing this for you. I'm not going to run away from this modality of experience. I'm going to lean into it, and I'm going to accept upon myself the mission of being moitzi yakar mezolel, to elevate beautiful, beautiful diamonds out of filthy places, of elevating meaningfulness out of that which appears meaningless, of bringing fullness out of that which feels empty. And the way in which that's done is anytime we overcome despondency, anytime we overcome overwhelm, over time, anytime we overcome the tendency towards denial, that's when the deepest light and the deepest pleasurable experiences come about. When we're able to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we're neshamos that are willing to be down here for you. And we're willing to live our lives as Balei Mumim. We're willing to do that. Even if it means we can't bring a korban in the Beis HaMikdash yet. Even though we know that in truth I can bring a korban in the Beis HaMikdash every moment I please, because there's no blemish in truth. Nevertheless, on the outside, my experience in this world sometimes is going to feel like it's blemished. And I have to climb up, and I might fall down again, and I have to climb up again. And I'm going to hold myself in that pattern. I'm going to be about tshuva. David HaMelech came along to teach the entire world how to do tshuva. David HaMelech lived this ebb and flow on the outside, even though in the innermost point of David HaMelech's heart, he was connected up above. Nevertheless, in the externalization of David HaMelech's posture in this world was an ebb and a flow, and a running and a returning, and a falling and a standing, and a building and a breaking. And instead of shrying and crying all day about why do I find myself in these dire straits, why do I find myself in this makom amikta, in this deep place of ifusha dahai alma, the thickness of this world, so we have to strengthen ourselves and say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm with the Shekhinah, and I'm not going to be shameful about being with the Shekhinah. I'm just going to have to understand what my mission is with the Shekhinah. And my mission with the Shekhinah is to uncover the positive sparks of light that are hidden in the cloudy darkness of this worldliness, which is Nekudos Tovos. I'm going to find Nekudos Tovos for you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the battle, in the struggle. And with that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and reveal to us that, these are the neshamos I want to be with. This is the place that I want to be. I'm going to have a deeper joy with you because you descended down into the darkness for me. You were willing to hold yourself. You were willing to wait. You were patient in spite of the fact that you saw others who had it easier and you saw others who didn't have such a struggle. You didn't run away from the struggle. You were willing to face the struggle each and every day. And yagatu matzata ta'amin, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. All you have to bring is your yagia. And our willingness to show up day in and day out. Chadashim lebekarim is showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we're trustworthy to you, Hashem. We're here. We're not running away, so you don't run away from us. We're not running away from you, so you don't run away from us. And in that place, the process of the neshamos that are clarifying things from the bottom learn to take on a certain strength, a certain power, a certain confidence in our avodah, a certain hidden knowledge that even though it's difficult right now, I know fundamentally that I'm going to have the first row at the Suda of the Lavyasan. Tzaddikim tell us that the only place that the Suda of the Lavyasan is going to be able to take place, the only place big enough for all of the souls of Klal Yisrael, is in Gehenna, is in hell. Mamela, the souls that feel that they have to go through hell sometimes are going to have a much better chance at getting a good seat. They're going to know the territory. They're going to know exactly what the revelation is going to be. And so Be'ezras Hashem, we have to continue to hold the line and to strengthen ourselves in spite of the fact that we feel that we're up and down and climbing and falling, opening and closing. We have to be aware of that this is the shlichus. This is the shlichus. We're shluchim for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be magala, light in dark places. And in that way, we can own our avodah. We can understand that, sure, I'm a balmum, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I accept to be a balmum for you. If that's what you want from me, I'll be a balmum, and I'm going to go into that process of what it means to be a balmum, of feeling deficient, understanding I'm not deficient, learning to place those deficiencies within a mindset that knows I'm not deficient, but still struggles with a sense of deficiency, etc., etc., etc. All of the narrative structures that we go through on day-to-day lives in this experience, in this generation. We should be zoichet to the Or Ki Tov for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reveal the true light of the Shemesh, to be metakin the light of the Levana, for Shevet Dan to be oile l'rosh, for the Mishkan to be built, for Dir B'tachtonim be transformed into a place of revelation, to Dveikus Etzem, to the secret of Mashiach Tzidkenu, who's going to come to us first. Is going to come to our generation first, the wounded generation, the generation that feels that it doesn't have hands and it doesn't have legs and it doesn't have its koyach. And it's going to be specifically there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and say is that, I saw what you did. I saw how deeply you loved me. You were willing to hold the line in that place where you felt blemished, and you held on to joy, and you held on to Amunah, and you held on to the light of the Tzaddik, and you held on to the light of the Tzaddikim. This is the Avodah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take our Bilbulim and Amunah, and it's going to place them in the crowning jewels of his crown, And in that place of Keser, it's going to be revealed that all of the struggles that we go through were only there to cultivate more and more ratzon and love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Be'ezras Hashem.